Good morning from Pulau Macan in the Thousand Islands, Kepulauan Seribu, just off an hour and a half from Jakarta. And this morning I am so delighted that I have a chance to spend the entire morning with Adam Schwarz, a very old friend of mine, a very old friend of Indonesia, who's now with Asia Group investors, who's doing strategy for foreign investors to come in to Asia. Asia Group has been very active in producing research reports in different part of Asia, and with the biggest office in Indonesia, in Jakarta, because Adam is such a very good friend of Indonesia. And you may remember around 20 years ago, Adam wrote a bestseller, a book about Indonesia called Nation in Waiting. Thank you, Adam, for being here in my show. The show is called Sandy Uno TV, open for business, open new horizons, open new ideas. So with Asia Group involvement here, we want to open our new ideas and new horizons, and we start with the US elections. Tell me about the US elections and your predictions where the new administrations will have a foreign policy.
Great. Well, listen, first of all, Sandy, thank you so much for inviting me on your podcast. As you say, we've been friends a long time, and I've been so impressed with all the work you've been doing on building entrepreneurship and financial inclusion around the country. So I've been a fan from the sidelines for a long time. So it's a pleasure to be sharing your podcast with you. Well, listen, on the U.S. elections, it's still, of course, pretty new in the sense that we have the incumbent not yet conceding, but I think the results are pretty clear. So I think we'll see quite a lot of change in the beginning. Starting with just the tone of politics. I think we'll see much more support for multilateral efforts and institutions. I think we'll see the U.S. rejoin the WHO and the Paris Climate Change Treaty probably almost in the first week.
We are here in Pulau Macan, which is the center of ecotourism. So when you made that point that U.S. will probably rejoin the climate change committee in the world, that's really
good news. Yeah, I mean, there's actually a lot of support for this in the U.S. And so the position that the Trump administration is taking is a little out of step with majority opinion in the U.S. So I think we'll see a bit more of an alignment between the majority concern about climate change and the felt need to do something about it with the government. So I think that's one area that you'll see a lot more positive energy. And I would hope to see, obviously closer to home is dealing with the pandemic.
Right.
Vaccine, particularly sort of global distribution of vaccines. My expectation will be that the Biden administration will be a lot more focused on that than the current administration. So I think also that's kind of a good thing for the world.
Well, Asia Group policy have been very active in mapping potential investments and trade opportunities across Asia, and how we could actually increase the relationship with the U.S. What's your outlook the next 5 years with the new administrations, and where are sectors that would be winners? Where are the sectors that would seem to be pushed by the new policies by the Biden administration?
I think trade is going to be a challenging area. In the last 4 years, the situation has sort of changed quite dramatically. So 4 years ago, we were just at the verge of approving the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which again had been pushed by the Obama administration, and Biden, of course, being Obama's vice president. Unfortunately, there's been so much sort of negative talk about trade and the impact on U.S. sectors and U.S. labor in particular, that it's going to be quite challenging for, I think, any new administration to come back into a big multilateral trading arrangement. That said, I think there'll be a pickup in trying to do more bilateral. For example, with Indonesia, as you know, there's already a discussion about possibly doing a limited trade deal. Okay.
Well, we are here in Indonesia. We're very glad that GSP was finalized during the final days of before the election, and we just launched an omnibus law, or we call it the job creation bills. What do you think about the possibility of attracting new investments from the U.S. Under the new pretext of this job creation bills?
I think they're very promising. I think also it's a little underappreciated. I think it needs a little bit more communication and talking about it. But the omnibus law, as you say, is actually a very dramatic, ambitious piece of legislation, and our company did a sort of a research analysis of it, and we described it as sort of the single biggest effort at bureaucratic reform, since the Orde Baru. It's really but it's not getting yet, I think, that much visibility. It's just a matter of staying the course, and at the end of the day, as you know, foreign investment, as a former investor yourself, there's a macro and then there's a project. Yes. And so at the end of the day, the projects have to make sense, and I think there's been great progress in making the environment better for projects to succeed. So I'm quite bullish for Indonesia's prospects in the next 5 years.
Well, from the Asia Group point of view, you see few sectors are actually going to be challenged by COVID-19, but there are other sectors that actually going to be flourish post-COVID. If you could select 5 to 6 sectors that would be promising, what would be those sectors?
Indonesia is already in a leading role in Southeast Asia on e-commerce, mobile transportation.
So fintech is going to be
fintech is big. E-commerce is going to be big, but even in the traditional sectors, there's Indonesia is so commodity rich that the prospects for downstream processing and industrialization, particularly on some of the outer islands. I think now that so much new infrastructure has been built, right. The world is still going to need, as we go down in a climate change world, we need more nickel, we need more right. cobalt, we need more magnesium. Right. Indonesia is rich in all of these things, so it's a matter of creating the conditions to process it in an economical way. So so I think there's quite a number of parts of the economy where the growth prospects, provided the policy support is there, right. have good prospects.
Yeah, and I'm seeing also renewable energies, the alternative energy with the Biden administration is going to also push policy friendly towards development of those clean energies. Yep. I think it's going to be going to take center stage here. Yeah,
and Indonesia again is, I think, very well. I mean, the potential for renewable energy in Indonesia is huge, enormous. Right?
That's
2 solar panels right over there.
2 simple solar panels that actually give energy to the entire island. So after 20 years or so in the reform, what was the yay and what has been the nay in the last 20 years?
Well, that could be a long conversation. Listen, in general, I think if you look at almost any metric, Indonesia in 2020 is better off than Indonesia in 1999. Right? Democracy is much more institutionalized and robust. Indonesia's had 4 or 5, almost universally described as free and fair elections. I mean, there's always flaws here and there, as there is in every election. Economically, there's, you know, it's less dependent on commodities and resources. You've got another generation of younger entrepreneurs and businessmen and women growing up that are taking positions of importance across the business community. But on balance, I think, you know, if you take that long 20-25 year lens, the picture is pretty clear that Indonesia is moving forward.
And we all indeed want to move forward. Thank you very much, Adam.
My pleasure.
Please enjoy Pulau Macan the weekend, and from time to time, Adam visit here in Indonesia. His office is the biggest Asia Group office, and thank you for situating your biggest office in Indonesia, putting your priority towards this hopefully no longer nation in waiting, the nation that has arrived.
Indeed. Well, we're very market driven, so there's a good reason for us to be here.
And I'm still waiting for that book, The Nation That Has Arrived. Well, thank you guys who've been listening to our podcast, and thank you Pa Adam for your generous time to discuss about Indonesia and the future prospect of the country.
Well, thank you for having me, Pa Sandy.